Hey everyone, my name is Jimorrow, and today I'm going to be breaking down my remix of Tripwire by YMIR. So the first thing I started with is I purchased the original audio file off of Bandcamp and removed all the low end from it.
Heartbeat barely there, warm hands cold as
Then I threw this audio into a fruity granulizer, which is this plugin, and tweaked the knobs around and created these chops. To complement the original audio, I added some drums, which I have filtering in, and a respace. Which is this patch, which I design all my patches myself, and it's just a saw wave with a square wave. And feel free to copy this if you want to. As for the processing on this, it's just some OTT and a bunch of EQing. I removed the low end, the sub frequencies of the respace, so it doesn't clash with the sub that I bring in later. Also added some static and some impacts. Then in section 1, I bring in some big drums. There isn't much processing on these other than some reverb on the snare, which I believe it's just some stock reverb. And the snare layer. I bring in the same vocal chop and some hi-hats. A sub. And some plucks, which I made this one is just a triangle wave with some effects, and most of the work here is in the post-processing, which the original sound like this, and I just added a ton of reverb, a ton of OTT, some delay, and just to really make it feel huge. And then layered that with this distorted pluck, which is just a sine wave with distortion, and a cashmere reverb pluck, along with this timbale, and another snare. Also brought in this shaker in the second half of section 1, which it just has some delay and some reverb on it. And then here I distorted it a little bit. I also introduced this new granulizer chop that I created. Which I stretch to match the tempo of the song. And then for section 2, I change up the beat a little bit and bring in this new saw bass. Which looks like this. So feel free to copy this if you want. And for the post-processing, it's just some EQ. Same, everything else is the same. I bring in two new synths, one which I call metal synth, and it sounds like this. And the patch looks like this. And has a camel crusher and some reverb on it, which the reverb fades in. I layered that with this. So the two layers go together really nicely. And that patch looks like this. Now for the build-up, I just layer a bunch of kicks and snares. A plain riser, along with a scary riser, sub drop, and some Apache horn shots. I also have the same vocal chop from earlier, but now pitching down and being bit crushed. For the bit crusher here, I use Destructor and the rate crush. Right at the end of the build-up, I throw in this really distorted vocal layer, which sounds like this. And that is just has a bunch of fast diss and some format shifting. So together with the original vocal, it sounds like this. I also make everything in the build become less wide and then back to normal, just so that it makes the drop sound even bigger than it actually is. So now I'm going to play everything from the intro to the first drop, but without the original song. Just the parts that I was adding. Now, let's take a look at the first drop. When I originally created this remix, I had made everything before the drop and had no ideas for where to take it. I sat on the project for about a month before I was able to come up with anything. And yeah, writer's block is a huge part of making music. So usually I just like to take a break and get back to the project when I'm feeling more inspired. So in this case, I sat down and created these vocal chops from the original drop. With some panning right here and some volume automation. And I have one chop that becomes totally mono. As for the processing on these, just some OTT, some super short decay reverb, some British clean camo crusher. For the drop drums, it's just a simple trap kick, the same kick from the intro, a high kick, some reverse crashes, and then a bunch of snare layers. There really isn't any processing on these drums because they all fit so nicely together that I didn't feel like I needed to do much with them. I think I added a little bit of reverb on a couple of the snares. And then I add some hi-hats. For the marching band drums, I took a loop and chopped it up to make it sound like this. For the 808, I just took a sample and chopped it up. And for the processing, it just has a wave shaper and some soft clipping. I also add this bass layer, which is just a saw bass. A simple saw with some effects, and I remove all the low end along with some British clean camo crusher. So together with the 808, it sounds like this. Then there's some Apache horns. And this distorted synth. Which this is a 3X OSC with a guitar amp on it. This MTA, which is a really nice free guitar amp, which I still use even though I have guitar rig. And it also has some camo crusher, some OTT, some more camo crusher, and some reverb to change it from this sound to this sound. And it has some pitch bend on it too. The last element of this first drop is this saw stack. And for this, it's just a ton of layers all combined. Sounds really nasty without the LFO. Let's dive into all these layers. So we got this synth choir sample pitched up, a bass, another bass, and a sub. And I just put camo crusher on basically every single channel and a bunch of OTT to just smush everything together. Nothing too complex or mind-blowing. A little bit of detuning on one of the layers. And then I layered that with the same YMIR vocal chop from the intro, which also has some pitch bend. Combined with this added reverb swell and these static textures. So combined, it sounds like this. And I just repeat that. So that's everything in the first drop. So I'm gonna just play the whole thing without the vocal chops, just so you can hear everything combined together. On to section 3. So I wanted to complement this beat from the original, so I just layered on the same drops from the intro, but now following the same pattern. Same hats, sub, a saw layer, which is the same one from the first drop, and then the same Reese bass, but now it has a little bit of downsampling on it. Right here. And then these drums. I also throw in these YMIR chops. And this vocal fill. Which, this is just a layer, pitch down 1 octave, and has some OTT and some diode 1 distortion. And that is it for section 3. I then keep it pretty simple, as I wanted to keep it like the original. And the build-up is exactly the same as the first build-up. So I'm gonna play everything together now, starting from section 3, but without the original. On to the last drop. I started with these guitar chops from the original one because I didn't want to have it the same as the first drop. which I layered with the chops from the first drop. And I wanted to make the second drop similar to the original one, how it has this tension build. So I created my own kind of impact stack. Which just consists of this impact, this siren, this impact, and this acoustic drum roll. Layered together with the same 808 bass from the first drop. With these 808 shots right here, I went in and boosted this knob and clipped it to give it this really saturated effect. As for the rest of the drop, it's all the same stuff from the first drop in terms of drums, just a new rhythm now. Along with these layered marching snares now to make them extra thick, I pitched down one layer. And in this one, I distorted this clip to make it sound like it was reverbed, but really it's just distorted. I thought that sounded really cool. All together, I'm going to just mute these vocal chops. Okay, so for the outro, I just took this vocal from the original, which originally sounded like this. And I just stretched it out super long. And then I layered that with these sounds here. Which this is actually another chop that I created in Fruity Granulizer. I also sprinkle that in the background of the second drop. Along with this piano in the end, which is not playing. This is the Noir, which is my favorite piano library made by Native Instruments. And the post-processing for that is just some reverb and some stereo imaging. So nothing complex, as it was sitting in the back, so I didn't feel like it needed much editing. So together it sounds like this. So that's the entire remix. Now I'll be showing you the mastering, which I made this a long time ago, so the mastering's kind of bad, and I don't master like this anymore, but I might as well show you guys. I have this Maximus, which is just doing some multi-band compression and some stereo imaging. I didn't really know what I was doing with mastering back then, so I was copying a video off of YouTube. There's a lot of great tutorials for using Maximus. I don't currently use it anymore, but it's still a great plugin. And then I have some ozone maximizer with a 1.5 dB threshold. So honestly, not that much. I felt like the song already sounds so good, it didn't really need much mastering. So that's it for the master chain. It's not much. It's pretty basic, and honestly, it doesn't take much to get a decent master if you mix everything well. Although I will be doing tutorials in the future for more complex mastering. Well, that's it for this project. Thanks for watching. Now, get out of here.